Congregation, let us breathe in. And as we do, let us breathe in deeply, noticing our breath and our bodies. And as we breathe out, I want to invite you all into a nice long hum. Let's do that now. Are you all right? It seems like we are not all right. There is death visiting us, so many of us in this community, and too much of it too soon, too young. It is fall, and the leaves are falling, and some of us are falling. Some of us are falling ill, are falling into depression, are falling into exhaustion, are falling into despair. For times such as these, you need a sixth sense. Proprioception is sometimes called the sixth sense, otherwise known as kinesthesia. This is your body's ability to sense movement, action, and location. It is present in every muscle movement you have. Without proprioception, you wouldn't be able to move without thinking fully about each step you take. Proprioceptive signals are transmitted to the central nervous system, where they are integrated with information from other sensory systems, such as the visual, the vestibular, that's balance, to create an overall representation of body position, movement, and acceleration. It is your sense of spatial awareness creating feedback to your brain that tells you what's going on around you. Is there a predator nearby? Am I at ease? It is very helpful on a hike. And one reason we know to walk over a root or to avoid a thorny branch. And one could argue that in times of comfort and ease, our senses are somewhat dulled, and in times of acute danger, they are on high alert. This is the sense that tells us the right grade of force to use when we are, say, cracking an egg. So that's why young children don't actually sometimes have an underdeveloped sense. So some of my kids cracking an egg took many, many tries, or pressing a button, right? If we don't engage our proprioceptive system, we might become acclimated to things we should not. And watching the local weather channel yesterday, I noticed how the weather reporter was celebrating the high temperatures in November, because isn't it convenient? And yet, convenience is not a spiritual value, my friends. And the insidious rise of the temperature, like the insidious rise of fascism, does not happen overnight. It happens slowly, right under our noses, as we adjust in small ways, without seeing how what we are adjusting to would have been unthinkable just a few months ago. And this is what Martin Luther King meant when he talked about staying creatively maladjusted to rising inequities. It's like a sixth sense, a feeling that something is just not right. I wonder if you have ever known someone who lived an entire life of creative maladjustment to the forces of oppression and injustice. Have you ever known anyone like that? I have. Last week, I was not here because I was attending a memorial service for my for Toby Emmer. She was my father's oldest friend. They had bonded in the 8th grade in Cleveland, Ohio, because both their parents were both card-carrying members of the Communist Party. And their families were each suffering real-world consequences such as eviction and unemployment. Toby lived an activist's life for all 78 years of it. In the early 80s, she ran for sheriff in Madison, Wisconsin on a platform of defunding the police. Her slogan was, it is really funny. If you knew her, you would definitely think this was very funny. Her slogan was, "Whose law? Whose order?" She worked for the United Auto Workers for many decades in their adult education department, teaching English as a second language and GED preparation to recent immigrants. Her memorial service at Riverside Church in New York last week was really more of a rally, marching out a kaleidoscope of causes from union and labor rights to Puerto Rican independence to nuclear disarmament to pro-Palestinian causes to freeing political prisoners such as Mumia Abu-Jamal. And I remember in 2006, our wedding, my wedding to James, at an Episcopal chapel in an Episcopal camp in Western North Carolina, we had a time of, in the middle of the ceremony, a time of Quaker silence where people would maybe stand and speak if the Spirit moved them to speak. And in the silence that day, or out of the silence, Toby Emmer stood and spoke about Muslims who were experiencing the threat of United States retaliation for 9/11 in the middle of the wedding ceremony. She stood and named people and places that were at war. She named political prisoners in faraway lands. My husband's parents and grandparents were horrified. But James and I understood any celebration of love is also a time to name the places where love is not reaching. Our love is in fact strengthened by our connection to those who are in crisis and struggle. In our abundant feast, let us never forget those who are going without food or without safety. Our love was magnified by the gathering of oppressions and injustice into that moment, and Toby knew the truth that even at our most joyous, freest moment, none of us are free until all of us are free. And for Toby, there really was no boundary between the personal and the political, and joy could not wait until the cause was won. Every action must include joy. I want to make it clear how joyful Toby was, how fun and funny she was. She was so deeply joyful, always smiling and laughing, always cooking spinach pie and bringing more than enough to share, because the work was hard and the battles were epically long and often unwinnable. And she didn't keep her joy compartmentalized apart from the justice work. It was all mixed in together. She would multitask like that. The social call with my dad would quickly become a call to arms about something, while the rally or the organizing meeting often just included a ton of jokes, good food, and socializing. See, Toby could see beyond the moment at hand. She saw that a movement had to begin in friendship and delight, and that a joyful life could only be joyful if it was spent working for justice, whether or not you ever freed the captives or destroyed the weapons. She saw how oppressive systems were many-tentacled, and so she became an effective organizer of various movements, making issues more visible to people who had not yet seen how much freedom is possible. To see things as they truly are need not lead to despair. I'm going to say that again. To see things as they truly are need not lead to despair. And we may be afraid, and that's okay. There are situations at play that are not always easily visible to all of us. This past week, I finally had the opportunity to see Jordan Peele's excellent thriller, Nope. Has anyone seen Nope? All right, I'm going to preach on Nope. Okay, I'm not going to spoil it, though. It's a thriller, and Jordan Peele really doesn't want people to spoil his films. I'm going to try not to. But it's worth watching. A key theme of this film is a concept he calls spectacleization. It's when everyone is looking at the big, giant spectacle, you see them? With the desire to be entertained. And so what they miss, in their desire to be entertained, they miss the very real danger that spectacle presents. They cannot see it for what it is until it is too late and they have been fully consumed by it. Now, Jordan Peele wrote and developed this film during the Trump presidency, and his message is clear. You must look more closely. You must have your wits about you. See things for what they are, and use all of your senses to see the truth of the situation around you. This is how you stay alive in the film Nope, and I'm feeling increasingly concerned that this is also how you stay alive right here on Earth. These are terrifying times. I mean, nearly half the country is willing to forgo the democratic process in order to maintain political power over others. Not only that, but there are bad actors who are infiltrating leftist organizations, stirring up controversy, fake fights, accusing each other of wokeness or cancel culture, and I worry about all of us, that we are in danger of being caught up, being consumed by 1,000 things that don't really matter. While the real danger is preparing to consume us all and our way of life, or it has already begun. And my nervous system has been running haywire too, and I'm not always sure precisely where to begin, where to direct my energy. I wonder if you feel some of that confusion at this time. And there is a lot to grieve right now, too. That person who I was telling you all about, Toby Emmer, she's no longer alive. All that verve and energy. We are losing some of our best and brightest justice warriors. And so we must become them. Maybe what we need is to make more time and space for grief, to confront the grief, to make a place for it at the table. I mean, our grief is connected to our love, our passion. And things at UUCA are not always visible to all of us. I mean, being in community with people who do not all agree about mask policies and foundational principles and how best to be anti-racist and how best to be Unitarian Universalist, it's very hard. But I am not in it for easy. I'm not in it for easy, church. There are easier churches out there, I know. But right now, I think we are being called to action and to figure out with our sixth sense what pressure to apply, where to apply that pressure, how to sense what is really going on around us. We just have to do the next right thing. The next right thing is all we have to do, really. This Tuesday, I will be serving as an election defender, and this is the way that I will begin to apply pressure, by just being a joyful, friendly face to voters standing in lines that will probably be too long, encouraging them to stay in it, to make their voice heard, and if there is any challenge to their freedom to vote, to de-escalate that challenge. And the central task of de-escalation is to connect with someone and to breathe. It is easy to disassociate from the rising political danger. This is your mind seeking the most comfort, and I do it too, we all do. But comfort and convenience are not spiritual values. If you look around the city at the way people are living, you can see evidence of how suburbanism has driven so many folks away from one another to larger plots of land, larger bubbles of comfort. Withdrawing from the world, we can get used to that space as a cushion around us. You know, the truth is, even before COVID pandemic, there was already a spiritual pandemic of isolation taking shape, one that does not serve a culture of sharing resources. But most of us who are engaged in this old-time religion, we know that there is something about this binding to one another that asks us to get closer to people than we otherwise would. And waking up to the rise of fascism does not mean you have to lose everything, but it might mean you have to share your guest room with people who are immigrating, either from an untenable climate or government oppression. But when you open your home, the good news is you get more connected to people, to culture, to joy. Resistance is very joyful. That is what I learned from Toby. Fascism can shift what is acceptable as normal. I mean, the German Holocaust, it began with small changes, right, under the Nuremberg laws. First, withdrawing vocational opportunities for people of Jewish ancestry. Early on in Hitler's reign, the lives of non-Jewish German citizens were barely disrupted at all. So our task is both spiritual and it is communal. If we know how to do this thing, welcoming the stranger, living with joyful resistance, then we will do it when it matters the most. But first we have to see things as they truly are. Then we organize our resistance and our service, our acts of service. If we can be creatively maladjusted to injustice, then we will not despair. We will joyfully resist. I'm talking about a network of mutuality right here at UUCA. What I'm saying is that if you decide to open your home to someone who is undocumented or who is fleeing forest fires in another place or storms, well, then someone else in the church is just going to have to bring over dinner to feed that family that's at your home. See, the world will most likely become more and more complex in the weeks and the months and the years to come. And we need not face that alone. And we need not give up on the world we dream of. So let us activate all our sensors, our proprioceptors, engage our spidey sense, really, that's how I think about it, and see what's happening around us. So in order to really activate and experience that sense, congregation, I want to invite you into something a little strange. I want to invite you into three things. I'm going to read the Vahavta, the poem from earlier. And as I read it, I'm going to invite you to do one of three things. You can either stay seated and stretch. You can stretch your body. Or two, you can stand and slowly walk around the space, feeling your body in space. Or three, you can lie on the floor and look up. Those are the three options. Sitting still is not one of them. Okay, ready? So I'm going to read it. Oh, here come the lights so you can see where you're going. So just let the words wash over you. Let yourself feel your body in space. Say these words when you lie down and when you rise up, when you go out and when you return, in times of mourning and in times of joy. Inscribe them on your doorposts, embroider them on your garments, tattoo them on your shoulders, teach them to your children, your neighbors, your enemies. Recite them in your sleep. Here in the cruel shadow of empire, another world is possible. Thus spoke the prophet Roque Dalton. All together we have more they have more death than we, but all together we have more life than they. There is more bloody death in their hands than we could ever wield, unless we lay down our souls to become them, and then we will lose everything. So instead, imagine winning. This is your sacred task. This is your power. Imagine every detail of winning, the exact smell of the summer streets in which no one has been shot, the muscles you have never unclenched from worry, gone soft as newborn skin, the sparkling taste of food when we know that no one on earth is hungry, that the beggars are fed, that the old man under the bridge and the woman wrapping herself in thin sheets in the back seat of a car and the children who suck on stones nest under a flock of roofs that keep multiplying their shelter. Lean with all your being towards that day when the poor of the world shake down a rain of good fortune out of the heavy clouds and justice rolls down like waters. Defend the world in which we win as if it were your child. It is your child. Defend it as if it were your lover. It is your lover. When you inhale and when you exhale, breathe the possibility of another world into the 37.2 trillion cells of your body until it shines with hope. Then imagine more. Imagine rape is unimaginable. Imagine war is a scarcely credible rumor, that the crimes of our age, the grotesque inhumanities of greed, the sheer and astounding shamelessness of it, the vast fortunes made by stealing lives, the horrible normalcy it came to have, is unimaginable to our heirs, the generations of the free. Don't waver. Don't let despair sink its sharp teeth into the throat with which you sing. Escalate your dreams. Make them burn so fiercely that you can follow them down any dark alleyway of history and not lose your way. Make them burn clear as a starry drinking gourd over the grim fog of exhaustion, and keep walking. Hold hands. Share water. Keep imagining, so that we and the children of our children's children may live. Amen.